Welcome to Arise with Christ. I'm Carolee Bailey.
And I'm Angeli Plojek. We share stories and truths related to the temple. Together with you, our hope is to fortify faith in Jesus Christ and experience joy in covenant keeping. In a recent BYU devotional, President Dallin H. Oaks said, "We are grateful to know that there are two methods of gaining needed knowledge. One, the evolving disclosures of man discovered by the scientific method, and two, the truths disclosed by the spiritual method, which begins with faith in God and relies on Scripture's inspired teaching and personal revelation. There is no ultimate conflict between knowledge gained by these different methods because God, our omnipotent eternal Father, knows all truth and beckons us to learn by both methods."
As a professor of social work, Dr. Cole Hooley expertly teaches us how to use both of these methods in our everyday lives as covenant keepers.
And after our visit, Carolee, you and I both came away feeling empowered and better equipped to navigate life's challenges through a spiritual lens.
Oh, I definitely felt that. And I love the word that he used, aspirational.
Yes.
I kept thinking about that word after our interview, and I love the idea of lifting and looking up and trying to become something better. I was so inspired, and we know that you as listeners will gain insights that will bless your life as you listen as well.
Dr. Hooley envisions a world where no one is left behind. Researchers are developing powerful tools to alleviate suffering, and his mission is to get them to everyone who needs them. Cole pursues this mission through a unique blend of clinical practice, teaching, research, and civic leadership. As a psychotherapist, he provides direct care that grounds him in clients' real-world needs. As a professor of social work, he trains the next generation of clinicians to deliver compassionate, evidence-based services. As a researcher, he studies mental health services and implementation science, focusing on how proven interventions can be scaled and sustained within behavioral health care systems. His experience as a city council member and as a consultant to state agencies help him translate research into actionable policy. At the systems level, Cole is deeply interested in bridging the gap between academia and policy. This goal is to produce rigorous research that is also practical and actionable for policymakers, system leaders, and community stakeholders. By integrating research and practice, he aims to help build innovative, equitable, and sustainable behavioral health systems. Dr. Hooley's research interests were born from his experiences in New York City, St. Louis, Utah, Uganda, Rwanda, and the UK.
Cole, it's so fun to be here in your office today. It has been a while since I've been in a professor's office here on campus.
Well, I appreciate the flexibility in doing it here. It's a little bit more controlled than other environments that I'm in. So.
And one of those environments that you're in is your home, where you have how many kids?
6 kids. Yes, 4 girls and then the twin boys.
Well, I did not bring enough cookies. I was thinking you had 4 kids.
Oh, if you think those cookies are getting home, that's the other thing that you've assumed. I don't know if they'll make it out the door, but we'll pretend.
Well, that's fair. We won't tell.
Cole, you wear a lot of different hats as a dad and a researcher, a professor, city councilman, so many things. With that, you're in front of a lot of different groups of people. But what's something that not very many people know about you, despite you spending a lot of time in front of lots of people?
That's a great question. I think something that might be unexpected is there is a substantial part of me that's introverted, where I just need to be recharge and sort of be alone. And most of my work is in front of someone doing something. And so there's this, oh, he's just extroverted all the time. And I'm like, actually, no, I can be that. And I'm going to have to go back and just sort of re-energize. And so there is a substantial part of my life. When I was living in New York City, for example, and people would be like, oh, what do you do? Let's go to the theater. Let's go all these places. Like, I like to take a book and wander in the city and sit down somewhere. And I just read and eat something interesting. And I keep walking, And so there's an aspect of me, I think, that is very introverted, internal. My wife and my family, they're like, he has a very rich internal world. Like, what's that code for? So that's probably something people might not immediately guess.
I love that description. Okay. Well, you mentioned your time in New York, and you've spent time in other diverse places. Will you just kind of tell us an overview of those different places you've lived and been and spent time?
Yeah, for sure. It's been an awesome ride. So I was born in Linden, Utah, and my family's been here for a really long time, multiple generations. I think my kids are the 7th generation of my family that's been in Linden. So really deep roots, and love it. After college, though, I guess mission. I served a mission in South Texas, so I was down in the McAllen mission. But after college, that's when it was just this moment of God inviting me into this adventure that I hadn't anticipated. And so then I moved to Massachusetts for a graduate school round 1 when I was doing my master's in social work. So I was living in Massachusetts. And then as part of that process, they have you do these clinical rotations. And so I did my clinical rotation in New York City. So I went to New York City and I was doing my rotation there. And then I came to meet my wife. Well, she wasn't my wife then, but came to meet her and had to go back to Massachusetts to finish some coursework. But then I was like, oh, maybe it would work out with her. So I'll go back and see if it would, because she just moved there for a job. I was like, oh, maybe it'll work. So I moved back to New York City after I graduated and found a job, and we ended up getting married. It was awesome. I somehow convinced her of that. And then we lived in New York City for years and started our family there. And then after that, moved to St. Louis, where I did my PhD. I just lived in the suburbs of St. Louis and Webster Groves. Also during this adventure, I've done some work in Uganda. I did some social work related work and research in Uganda, and then in Rwanda, and then in the UK, just different projects. So I would go out there for these sorts of work and then come back. Then after St. Louis, I got a job at BYU, and that brought us back to Linden. So it's a little bit of a boomerang moment.
Oh, that's awesome. So many good experiences. You mentioned that you worked in these different places on projects. So it was a short period of time. And I don't think we've mentioned yet that you're a social work professor.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just give a definition of social work. Maybe not everyone knows. Like you're talking to a 10-year-old. What is social work? Yeah,
social work is a profession focused on alleviating human suffering and solving social problems. And so we will use whatever sort of social science strategies that psychology or marriage family therapy or sociology, criminology, economics, political science, we'll use any of those tools to alleviate suffering and solve social problems with a specific focus. Of course, broadly, we want to do those things, but with a specific focus on those who are vulnerable or marginalized, the people that society kind of pushes to the side. They're the ones we want to go to first. And then, of course, want to help everyone else as well. But that's how I'd probably describe it.
And the projects that you were working on internationally, what kinds of projects were those?
Oh, yeah. So in Uganda, our work was focused on, there is an organization called the AIDS Support Organization, and they provide a lot of different services for individuals who are either directly impacted by HIV or AIDS or have someone in their life impacted by that. And there were a suite of services that their centers were trying to provide that they were having a difficult time implementing and scaling. And so we went in to support them in the implementation and scaling of some of those projects that were specifically focused on for individuals who end up having complications and dying. What ended up happening was kids were being left without support or resources in some instances. And so we were going in with one focus to help with transition and will writing and making sure things were set so that children could have everything they needed. And the other thing was there was like a gap in sort of loss of cultural connection and family. When you're really, really ill, we retreat. And so there were so many things that kids were missing out on. And then parents or others would die, and there was this vacuum of their story, their legacy, and traditions. And so we had an intervention to help bridge the generations and provide stories and try to help with the transition of culture. So both really logistic and then more of a cultural focus. Then in Rwanda, we were focused on a health issue. There were hypertension and how to get treatment to everyone out in the rural communities and in the city centers, and they had some really good practices, but they were having a hard time getting them up to scale. Then in the UK, was focused on helping their looked after child or child welfare system improve their services, and their mental health system try to help them improve their services. So just a variety of different projects trying to help people.
That's a great glimpse into the world of social work.
Yeah. I mean, and for my work, I mean, in New York and St. Louis and other places, I've worked in outpatient mental health with rich and famous sort of people, and then in school in Harlem, serving kids in Harlem and South Bronx. And I worked out in East New York, Brooklyn, in a child welfare diversion program to help youth that were really struggling. And I mean, there's just such a mix. Death and dying. I worked with a group that was helping young kids that had someone who died in their family, and peer mentoring. And so social work just finds its way wherever there's a problem in a person. And so I've been able to do a lot of different things with it.
Yeah, that's incredible and super inspiring. I'm so grateful for people that go out and learn and research and find ways to help. I love that. That's amazing.
It's a great ride.
So transitioning a little bit into our conversation today about covenant keeping and Jesus Christ, we know that covenants are meant to bind us to the Savior. They also bind us to one another. And we learn in Mosiah 18:21, and I'll read it. It says, "And he commanded them that there should be no contention one with another, but that they should look forward with one eye, having one faith and one baptism, having their hearts knit together in unity and love one towards another. And thus he commanded them to preach, and thus they became the children of God." I really love hearing about your experiences all over the world and being able to learn how to help one another as children of God and how to come together in unity and love and building those bridges and lifting. From your experience as a social work researcher and professor, what are the societal benefits of living according to shared principles and covenants?
I love that question. My world, I get to cross various levels of the human experience. So I still have a private practice where I meet one-on-one with people in various states of discomfort and pain. And then my research looks at a really broad lens at society and systems and how our mental health system structure works. So I zoom in and zoom out in any given chunk of my day. And so this question, it just provokes so many different thoughts. I'll see if I can put them all together. I think we'll talk around it to get to it. But I mean, the first thing, when we just look at research, studies, longitudinal meta-analyses, systematic reviews, there's a lot of evidence that suggests a religious life is associated with a host of really helpful outcomes. Lower mortality rates, lower alcohol, smoking, drug use, lower depression, lower suicide, less divorce, greater social support, increased likelihood of making friends, better civic engagement, higher happiness, greater sense of self. I mean, I could just go, and with very specific populations as well. They've done these analyses with communities that have so many challenges heaped upon them. One would think that, oh man, how could that potentially help? Religion or that idea of something beyond themselves, but it shows to help them as well. I mean, there's caveats, of course. It's not for everyone. It's not like slap it on and everyone would be better. But when I see that at the research level, it makes me think, well, why is that? And there's some research ideas, and this is just me now talking about what I think. I think it comes back to your notion of covenant. So in our faith, we have a handful of covenants. And when I think about what those covenants are inviting me to be, it starts to build a bridge in my mind about the kind of community it could create. So, like with our first covenant with baptism, I see it as we're being invited to live a life that's devoted to God and that's in service to others. So out of the gate, we're starting with this perspective of both a vertical relationship and a horizontal relationship with other people. Then as we move on to the next round of covenants, we have one that's like obedience. And for me, that's a willingness to live a Christ-like life. I'm like, I'm going to try to live it his way. And then the next one was sacrifice. To me, it's like, and I'll make amends when I slip from that. I'll repair when I fall from living his sort of life and support his work. Then the next invitation I think we have is the law of the gospel. And for me, that's our willingness to participate in this ongoing process of refinement and conversion to be like him. And then with chastity, I think that is our commitment to love and loyalty. How we are offered a power and then given a chance to manage that power in a way that's conducive to a Christ-like life. And then consecration gets crowned off with an offer to offer our best to build up others and community. So when I think about that's what I'm promising to do, then it dovetails into a kind of, if everyone was trying to do those sort of things, the accumulation of that is a connected, compassionate, courageous community. So for me, when I think about the effects of a covenant living life and the benefit they could have on society, for me, it comes to this notion in research, in mental health, we talk about attachment styles, and all of those sort of ideas. And really what comes down to it for me is connection, the power of connection, both vertical and horizontal, and that the problem is separation. I think it's really instructive that when we think about the deaths, the unifying characteristic with both of them is separation, the separation of our body and our spirit, and the separation from us and God. So for me, connection, it's like, how do we foster connection? I think those covenants are an invitation to do that. And so from like a psychotherapy perspective, we're trying to create a secure attachment within ourselves, both with us and God, and then us and other people. And that secure attachment doesn't mean that we're perfect with each other, that we are just more consistently responsive to each other, that we're trying to be attuned with each other. We repair when we have slips. And there is a window of optimal frustration where it's okay to let people disappoint someone or not be enough for someone, because then that gives a chance to grow. And so for me, when I look at how God's working with us in those ways, he's mirroring it. We don't get everything we need right away. And so it gives us a chance to grow. And sometimes he'll give it right when we need it. It's prizing and protecting connection for me. And so coming back, talking all that out loud, I think the answer for me, when I look at what the societal benefits are, if we live those covenants, become that kind of person, it helps us strengthen our attachment to each other and to God in a way that's conducive to a good life. One that's not perfect, but responsive. And so connected. And so I think that gives us a series of tools to do that, to forge really secure attachments with each other and him.
I love how you talked about that our covenants can be tools to help us. I have never thought of it in that way. I think that's a really powerful concept, because we pick up a tool and we decide to pick it up and use it. Mm-hmm. And so when we want to benefit from our covenants and have the connection, like you were talking about, we can choose to live according to those covenants, use that tool to foster connection in our lives.
Yeah.
So that's really beautiful. And I also love how you use the word repair. We think a lot about repentance, and that's had a negative connotation in the past. Repair seems like a more maybe palatable word for some people.
Yeah.
But I feel like President Nelson helped us understand that repentance is also palatable.
Yes.
And beautiful. So I just really appreciate you talking about that. That was, as we talked about things we wanted to ask you, that was something that really stuck out as I thought about your work. And I love how you spoke about that. So enlightening. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thanks for the question.
Yeah. And you used the phrase secure attachment.
Yeah, secure, it's the launch pad for us. You know, if we're with people that it's like, I can struggle and you don't withdraw, I can count on you to be there. You see me. Being with you helps me regulate myself, and I can grow and still belong. Like, that's a secure attachment, where there's enough of interdependence with each other where we cannot do this without someone else, but we are not shackled by someone else.
Yeah.
We find ourselves by losing it. It's like that paradox in a way. So our security liberates us.
Absolutely. Do you have any advice for somebody who feels like they would like to improve an attachment in their life, whether that's with a person or with their Heavenly Father?
Yeah. When I think about the recipe for secure attachment, one thing I would tell the person is you can grow into a secure attachment. It's not an all or nothing game where you either had it or you don't have it. And so when I think about 4 areas that I would focus on, it would be responsiveness. So if I'm trying to forge a connection with someone else, people are vying for our attention or calls for us. And if we can be responsive, and so eye contact, I'm seeing you, I'm hearing you, I'm signaling that I'm understanding that you are signaling to me that you are engaging me somehow. So I'm with you. Like, that's why I think phones, for example, can be so hurtful, because it cuts off responsiveness. We're just not connecting. And that's when our hearts kind of crack a little when we're like, oh, I missed it. There's some researchers out there. I was just at a training that a colleague gave, talking about this attachment, and that our brains are constantly looking for a connection with someone. She mentioned a statistic, which I haven't seen myself, so I don't know how accurate it is, but given what she said, it was like even every 10 seconds, our brains are doing something to say, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? So responsiveness. And then emotional attunement, I would try to focus on not so much like what people are saying or what they're doing, but what it's communicating they need under it. And so sometimes people can be kind of nasty and mean, but underneath that, what they're saying is, I'm just stressed out. And so if I can find a way of focusing on attuning to their emotion and not so much about what they're saying or doing.
Which is sometimes hard.
Super hard. Super hard.
It's kind of taking the emotion out of it and saying, what do they need?
Yeah, what are they saying to me? And then we talked about the rupture repair. So if we miss on those 2 things, we're not responsive, we're not attuned, it's okay to say, I missed that one. I think you were trying to say something to me, or I got really upset when you were upset. I think what you were needing was me just to listen to you, right? Can we do that again? So doing that rupture repair, those 3 things. And with God, it's awesome because there's actually theories about attachment with God. And a lot of it is a similar stretch. So it's like, how can I be responsive to Him? How can I be responsive to the nudges that I think I'm getting? How can I put out my requests to Him? And then attune. It's the same sort of, how can I align myself with Him and what I'm feeling, and repairing a rupture? When I distance myself from Him, how do I just come back and approach Him? And all the while knowing that there is a level of optimal frustration. It's fine. Parents can get implicated here a lot because like, oh man, I'm not doing enough with my kids. Like, I totally screwed that up. I said the meanest thing ever. I totally ignored him one day. I mean, all of that. There was one of the founders of this secure attachment even tried to quantify what percent of on point you need to be. And the percent, he's like, it can be really low, people. Where it's like 30%. It's like, if you could just have some really gold nuggets with them, there's a chunk of time where they're there.
Wow. They
can tolerate a lot of misses. And so anyway, I would say that to people. Those 4 things, I guess, if we're including the optimal frustration, but responsiveness, attunement, repair, and accepting optimal frustration. It's just part of the gig.
Oh, that's so helpful. Thank you.
As you are talking about your world of social work and connecting it to the gospel, I'm thinking about what President Oaks said at his recent BYU devotional. Mm-hmm. And he talked about the 2 methods for gaining knowledge.
Yeah.
He said, 2 methods of gaining needed knowledge. 1, the evolving disclosures of man discovered by the scientific method, and 2, the truths disclosed by the spiritual method, which begins with faith in God and relies on scriptures, inspired teaching, and personal revelation. There is no ultimate conflict between knowledge gained in these different methods because God, our omnipotent eternal Father, knows all truth and beckons us to learn by both methods.
Love that.
So such a great thing, the marriage of both methods of learning truth.
Yes, yes.
You kind of touched on this in what you were sharing earlier related to principles and covenants. But I want to ask you to maybe go a little bit more specifically to this question. What suggestions do you have for someone who is seeking to maintain mental health and live a Christ-centered life in the chaos of our day?
Yeah. I think this question is really astute because it treats mental health and a Christ-centered life as separate things, which I think is good. Because some people think if they're living textbook Christ-centered life, that one would not have a mental illness. That our living a good life repels illness. But it's, the same thing we'd say, like if you lived a Christ-centered life and obeyed the word of wisdom really well and cancer struck you later on in life, unfortunately, we wouldn't say, well, you should have lived the word of wisdom a little better, shouldn't you? So I love that you're framing it in this way of we are beings, complex beings with bodies, chemicals, electric pulses, and those things can go awry for any number of reasons, and we can still live a Christ-centered life in the space of a mental illness. So first of all, I love that you said it that way. If I was talking to someone wanting some suggestions on how to maintain mental health, so if they're in a decent place or coming in and out of a decent place, there's just a couple things that consistently have been helpful for me. The first is the capacity to self-monitor, to know oneself. So like naming it, introspect, to be able to detect within oneself, oh, I'm slipping a bit. I was a little bit terse and that's not my style. I'm feeling, just being able to name within oneself, detect a shift from wellness. When someone has a cold coming on, like, how did you know that a cold was coming on? It's because they're like, well, my baseline, I don't really sound that way. My throat doesn't really do that. And it's starting to feel different. I'm like, shoot, man, you're getting sick. We don't treat mental health the same way. It just ends up getting bad. And then we look back and name it. And so if we were to take in the three spheres of our being, our thoughts, our physical sensations, and our behavior, if we looked at those three zones of our life and just knew ourselves enough to say, I'm veering from what is standard for me or what's well for me. So I think the first is being able to name it, just name what's going on in oneself. Then another skill that I think is helpful is making space. So once we name what's going on inside of us, whether it's where we're needing a little bit more to be well or we're doing all right, I think it's creating space to make a different decision. So if we're headed down a path of not feeling well, first we have to know, I think I've got a tickle in my throat. Then we have to create some space to make a choice. Am I going to just plow forward today, or am I going to take a minute to just relax, or I'm going to drink some more water, or I'm going to make sure I have a nap today instead of just forging ahead. So we have to make space to make a choice. I think in making a space, the two steps are, one, just to accept the state that we're in for the moment. So it's just like a non-judgmental, this is what I'm feeling right now. I've got an itchy throat. And just to be in the moment with how you are. Most of the time, we inflict a lot of judgment on how we might be feeling in our mental health. And all that does is magnify the problem. If we just sit and say, I'm feeling a bit anxious today, it already keeps things dialed in. I can't believe I'm feeling anxious. I'm so nervous. It's so bad. It just ramps it up. So if we just use it as a passing thing, I've been a therapist, 16 years. I haven't met anyone that's stuck in one emotional state in perpetuity. It's going to change. So if we can just make space by accepting what we are right then and being present with it, then it gives us a little bit more space to do something different. I think about it as I helped a cousin of mine move into his home, and they had this stairwell that kind of wraps around a bit, and they had a living room up there, and they wanted to bring their couch up, like one of the full-size couches. And so we're like taking it up the stairs, and it was tight. Like we were doing a 27-point turn to get around the corner, right? And so for me, when we restrict it by being so judgmental and harsh, it's like there's nowhere to move it. But if we just say, that's what it is for now, that's interesting. It's like we open the walls, and then we can move that couch 20 different ways in order to get what we need. So naming it, making space for things. And then the next one, I mentioned, naming it, it's like your mind, your thoughts, your physical sensations, your behavior. So in that same spirit, in our minds, something I think that can help us all is to think flexibly. For me, what that translates into is this notion that our brain is just constantly coming up with ideas. It's its job. Its job is to take in data and make interpretations just all the time. And the thoughts come to our minds automatically. It just happens. And some of them are really strange and peculiar. And sometimes we're embarrassed by those thoughts. And it's just our brains do weird things. And that's fine and dandy. All things going. We get stuck, though. There's certain types of thoughts that are rigid, perhaps overly negative. They either underestimate our capacity to cope or overestimate the nature of a problem or a situation. Those thoughts get us stuck. And so if we get a stuck thought, this sort of thinking trap, the thinking flexibly is like, what are 3 other ways that I could think about this situation right now? When I'll walk through with clients and they'll have a thought that's pretty harsh, we'll say, well, what's another way of looking at it? What's another way of looking at it? And then there's another way that I always ask them to look at it. As like, even if it were true, then what? Then what do you do? So if we can think flexibly, and then behaviors, for me, I think people feel better when they are more consistently acting in line with their values. Doesn't guarantee that if we're consistently acting in our values that we feel well all the time, but that's another space people can make an adjustment and just ask themselves, when we behave, there's a short-term payoff and then there's a long-term trade-off. When problems show up, we'll do something because it solves like a quick problem, like yell at them because then they'll just get in line. But then it kind of causes some distance in our relationship. So there's a long-term trade-off. So much of when we get into trouble is when we're doing the short-term payoff so often. And so I'll just invite people to invert it and say, can you delay the short-term in service of your long-term? So that might mean regulating yourself and not letting them have it that one time. Or it might mean, today I just want to stay in bed all day and not talk to anyone, but that's not really conducive. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to shower and I'm going to go outside and I'm going to start doing some things. So I'm like being in service of your long-term benefit instead of the short-term payoff. The physical sensations, our bodies are beautiful and wonderful, and God's designed them in such a cool way. We're just constantly taking in information, and our bodies will take in that information and make a quick judgment about it. And our physical sensations are first clues about our emotional state or what could be coming up, which is usually good. We get that pit in our stomach, like something's not right. I'm getting this flush in my face. I'm getting upset. It's like our bodies will tell us what's going on. Sometimes our bodies, though, they err on the side of caution. And so they're not always super accurate. And so for me, when our bodies are doing things in conjunction with that first one of being able just to name it, because my body says something doesn't mean it's a real thing. It's like a smoke alarm in a house. Sometimes it goes off because there's a fire. Sometimes it goes off because there's like popcorn or bacon that's not a fire, but you went a little too far. And then sometimes it's like a battery issue. And so for me, it's the same alarm each time, but I can then say, okay, fire, bacon, battery. And I find that people, when they get into the battery bacon category, but they're acting as if it's a fire, that's when they get into trouble. So I'm like, well, act as if it's bacon or battery and not that it's a fire. So take your actions and put them in line with your values even though that sensation is telling you to do something different. I think some of that's just being able to name my heart's racing. I'm feeling a pit in my stomach, and that's just what my body does. And then the last thing is turn towards, face things with courage and grace. A lot of problems show up because of avoidance. Avoidance to ourselves, facing something challenging, avoiding someone else, avoiding a situation, trying to change, hamstring our emotions into something that they're not. But if we can just take a moment and pivot towards it and face it with courage and grace, our brains realize that we're stronger than we think we are. So those are just a couple areas. I think principally, if someone were to do those things as needed, we would stay more or less in a healthy space or get back to a healthy space.
Cole, you're really good at this.
That's very nice. You're very nice.
I just feel like I snuck in on one of your lectures.
Yeah, I know.
I'm auditing the class, and I didn't even pay tuition.
This is the first time I've actually taken notes for my personal use during an interview.
We're all in there. We're all in there with you.
So good. So helpful. Yeah. I'm excited that we're sharing this with people. This is cool, really. This is really going to benefit people. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure.
I loved absorbing what you've shared so far, and we want to learn a little bit more about you personally, if that's
sure.
okay.
Of course, I'd love to.
How have you seen the Lord's hand in your life?
So I'm one of those children of God that Heavenly Father is like, oh, he needs a lot of attention. And I'm so grateful for his modeling of patient parenting towards me. How I've seen the hand of the Lord in my life, broadly, probably two ways. In periods of divine silence and then periods of divine surprises. In those divine silences, I kind of see it as moments when God intentionally delays responding to me because he loves me and he can see the future and he knows what will be best for me and he's wise about that. And so he holds off. And there have been multiple seasons in my life where I've been like, what's up, bro? What's the answer? I need that little miracle. And there's a period of silence. And I'm not a very patient person by temperament. And so I tend to wiggle and stress in those moments. And then when I'm out of them and I look back, I see his fingerprints everywhere. I'm like, man, when it says waiting on the Lord, I didn't know that was a devotional act. I didn't know that was as much of a verb as it sounds. Mm-hmm. He's like, hey, Cole, waiting is an act of devotion and refinement. And when I've waited in a way that's conducive, I come out better. And I was like, man, you were right. I've just seen periods, like it took me 3 times to get into a PhD program. And I was like, what's going on? Like I kind of felt this nudge to do this. Why isn't this working out? And then once it did work out, he landed me in a place where I had a much clearer understanding of why I was doing it. I had a really good career going and we were loving what we were doing. And there was no really big reason to stop that. And so I had a much deeper understanding of why I should pursue it. He set me up in a program that I had never, ever anticipated going to. And he opened me to it because of the waiting. And so he opened a door and that ended up being this like perfect fit that opened the next door and the next door and the next door. And then COVID happened. And if I would have taken these other options, I would have still been getting my PhD probably right now. And we were able to get here and able to get a house before the housing market went crazy. I mean, it was just all these things. It's like that happened in the silence and I didn't see it. So I see him in divine silence. And then I've seen his hand in those divine surprises, those sweet surprises, those unearned moments, unexpected, when he just gives you something. And they've been in moments where there's times that I'll pray and I feel like it's a useful thing for me. And I don't immediately feel any sort of special beyond me having a conversation. And then there's moments when I feel like he's in the room talking to me. I'll read my scriptures. I try to make it like a part of my structure in my weekly process. And there's days where I'm reading it and I'm taking in words. And then there's times when it's like a pen pal wrote a message to me and it just lands. I'm like, oh, that's for me today. Like I needed that one today. And so on and so on. It's like times when I fasted and I was just hungry, and other times I fasted and I felt super connected, or I've received a blessing and I had to like open your eye to just be like, wait, who's saying this? So I've seen him give me these sweet surprises, and so many, I mean, I could go through so many, big and small. We were on a family vacation in Pennsylvania, Hershey, Pennsylvania, and got a phone call and they're like, are you okay? We're like, yeah, we're at an Amish buffet. I mean, what could be worse? Yeah, this is awesome. And they're like, no, there's so many fire trucks at your apartment building. And our apartment building in New York had caught on fire. And we didn't know if we were coming back to a home, if all of our stuff was up in flames. And when we finally got back, it turns out that the fire had gone all the way through all the walls up to our apartment and then stopped. And then burnt up above and below. They condemned our apartment. So we were at the mercy of neighbors and kind people for a while, and lived in a hotel with some insurance, but it's like we went back to our life and had stuff. And it's like, that's like a super big one. And then there was another time when my daughter got up and she bore her testimony, and she'd mentioned seeing me be engaged in my calling and how that was meaningful. And it was like, you see me? You see me? And so I don't know. I just think God is in both of those places with me over and over again, filling my silence and offering me these surprises. And I think those are the moments that I have the most contact with him. But anyway.
It reminds me of a story that actually Elder Rasband related of Joseph B. Worthland having a conversation with President Monson. And President Monson said to Elder Worthland, there is a guiding hand above all things. Often when things happen, it is not by accident. One day when we look back at the seeming coincidences of our lives, we will realize that perhaps they weren't so coincidental at all. So good. And when you said that waiting is a verb, that just hit really hard. And isn't it true? We all wait. We all have to wait. But how are we waiting? Are we waiting in faith? And maybe sometimes we're not as much as others. But like you said, looking back and seeing his fingerprints all over everything, that's when I recognize my blessings and a lot of the miracles in my own life too, is by looking back, because in the moment, often you're so caught up in life and whatever, it is sometimes hard to recognize. But I do think it helps to remember President Nelson's counsel to us to seek and expect miracles. That has helped me so much in teaching my children, like, okay, that was a miracle. Are we watching this? Like, that's so great.
I love that. That's so true. I think God is, where you were mentioning President Oaks, in that same talk, he quoted, I think it was Brother Evans, saying science is us discovering things that God already knew and is already in control of, When we look at research, there's this variable ratio reinforcement. It's the most powerful reinforcement schedule. So when you think about, you did a thing, I'll give you a reward. That's reinforcement, right? Well, there's different schedules. Cadence. Do you give it each time they do the thing? 1-to-1. Do you wait? Do you do it randomly? And the most powerful one is the variable ratio, which means that we don't know when the reinforcer will come. So if you think about the most addictive things, gambling, social media, those all use this variable ratio approach. Jobs that are commission-based, you just don't know which phone call is going to land a sale. And so when I see God's work with me, that schedule leads to the most persistent, long-lasting change. Like, that's what gets us to do something. That's why people who even know that social media is like what they don't want to spend their time on, why they find themselves scrolling, because it's just so powerful. And I feel like God is using variable ratio reinforcement with me, where he's like, not quite yet, Cole. Not quite yet. I'm not going to give you the pillar of light each time you pray to me, man. I'm not going to answer and swipe away all the problems because you fasted this week. And so I keep coming back I just think there's some brilliance. It's like, man, he's good. He's real good. And he's doing it in a compassionate, loving way. But when I look at what he does for me, I trust that he's leading me to the most lasting, deep change. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll trust you, man.
And he knows Cole.
Yeah.
I think about the woman with the issue of blood, and she was seeking him and looking for healing for so long. And then she had that moment of opportunity where she could reach, and he turned and healed her. And then I think about the woman at the well, totally not expecting to encounter the Savior when she went for water. But she was also healed. And he knew her need and her story and the moment when she would be there that he could bless her life. He knew that for the woman with the issue of blood. And he knows that for each of us.
So true. That's beautiful.
So Cole, as we've said, you're one busy guy. How do you continue to grow spiritually as you are so busy with your family, your work, and the city council and all the other things that you do?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to say things that are aspirational, I think. We're like, okay, Cole, get back on there, man. Keep trying. So I'm a work in progress in every aspect of my life. And I don't know, some principles I think that have been helpful for me. There's something beautiful in our doctrine of eternity, limitless time. This notion of we have all the time. So when I think about all the things that I want to do and grow and learn and be, it changes the landscape. I don't have a deadline. I have a long time to work on patience. I have a long time to get that sort of ironed out in me when I get overreactive to certain emotions. And so I'm like, God has given me a lot of time, so I'm just going to chill out a bit. Relax, man. It's like our hobbies even like now are like self-care. It's like, I'm going to take up this hobby and I have to do something really fancy with it. I'm like, no, you don't. You could just chill. And there's just this pressure of time. So I love that our faith says, actually, yeah, I mean, I get it. You have time now, but there's really limitless amounts of time. And in our faith, we believe that we're growing and progressing for a really long time. So it tells me I have more time than I think. The paradox is repent today. Today is the day to meet. The Lord is coming soon. So then he gives us the other side where it's like, and there's limited time. For me, today is the day for me to prepare to meet the Savior, because this mortal experience, I'm just going to have one pass at this mortal experience. So then it invites me to prioritize what I'm going to do right now. So I have lots of time to do all the things, so I don't have to worry about missing out. But I do need to pay attention to how I prioritize, how I will use the limited time that I have right now. So it invites me to relax and to engage in some magical way. So for me, if I can say, Cole, there's lots of things, and what's most important for you right now? Like, what would be most essential? So that time thing helps me sort of realize I'm going to be growing a long time. And as long as I'm intentional about what I'm going to do right now, whatever size it is, then that's great. So like an intentionality. And then for me, I've also had to learn right now, just because it is going from one thing to the next thing to the next, to savor moments that are growth promoting, or special, even if it's like just a beat, to savor it or to focus on it a little bit, to name it. Like you just said, sometimes I'm like, hey, what I did, it was growth promoting, or that was really helpful for me. Oh, that's awesome. And then there's like a 4-point check though for myself when I'm thinking about growing, taking on something or trying to improve myself. Wisdom and order and strength and means. So in Mosiah 4:27, you say wisdom and order. And then in Doctrine and Covenants, it talks about strength and means. And so for me, wisdom speaks to direction. What's the direction of change that I want to pursue, or that I'm feeling nudged to do, that's being put on my heart? What's the direction of growth? Is it aligned with my guiding principles and values? What's really important to me right now? It's like, it's one thing to know your gut, but some people like trust your gut. I'm like, well, I'm more of a know your gut, trust your values kind of guy, where those aren't going to lead me astray. My gut does often, but I want to know my gut, but I'm going to trust my values and align with my long-term good. So that's wisdom for me. Order is process. So what's the structure, the timing? How much is this going to be? Am I going to do this all the time? A little bit of time? Is there a deadline? Am I writing a book or am I journaling? I just try to think of the structure. There's season for all things, line upon line, precept upon precept. So I'm just like, I want the structure to be sustainable for what I'm doing. I can take on too big of a thing too soon and be like, I'm going to do an emotional analysis of the scriptures. I still have that spreadsheet. I'm like, it is not done because it's a huge project. And our library and other researchers did it. And I was like, they had a whole team. And I was like, that's amazing. So wisdom and order. And then strength and means. Strength, I think, is capacity and means are resources. So when it comes to growing spiritually, I think about where I'm at right now. And we've got twins that are 3 years old. And there's just been seasons where I'm like, I'm reading my scriptures because this is how much time I have. It's just a couple minutes. And I'm going to listen to a conference talk on my drive because that's what I got. Like, that's all I have. And there's other seasons where I've got multiple books laid out on a table and I'm pontificating in my head. And it's like different capacity, different set of resources. So for me, if I'm thinking of growing, I'm like, okay, I've got a lot of time and I should prioritize. I should be intentional about that. And then as far as what I choose to do, I think, okay, wisdom, order, strength, means. What makes most sense for me right now? Aspirational. I'm like, yeah, Cole, live that way.
You can come back and listen to this next week when you're feeling a little
Cole, remember what you said, man? But I feel like I'm in a better place if I'm facing growth that way than if I'm trying to overhaul myself, or I don't know, I can just get into the land of trying to do too much, or then I get exhausted. So then I don't do stuff and I don't want to vacillate. I just want to steady.
Yeah. We're offering ourselves a little bit of grace and room to move. I've been thinking a lot about the law of entropy and how the natural unraveling of things in this world, it just happens. Decay happens. And the same can happen with our testimonies if we're not actively trying to seek that growth. But with the caveat of let's only do what we have the capacity to. And we want to keep striving. We want to keep working, but also offer grace for ourselves too at the same time.
There's a particular therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, that brings in these paradoxes. And one paradox is change and stability. And there are just seasons where we need to be still and know that God is. And then there's other times where we are asked to strive for change. And so I think there's wisdom in knowing when Jesus went off from everyone and had a moment, or when he fell asleep on the boat. There's just moments of like, it's okay to just keep doing those intentional acts to stay well, but it's like, be still. And then, actually, I really need to overhaul how prophets invite me into that space all the time. Like when they talk about peacekeepers and how we talk about other people and I'm just like, okay, get it together, Hooley. Like, now's the time. And so I think God has a way of signaling to us as well. And we'll feel that nudge inside. He's like, I think this is the thing. Okay. Wisdom, order, strength, means. How am I going to do this?
Going back to your analogy with the cold.
Yes.
Kind of feel that, something's coming on here.
Something's coming on.
I got to do something here.
Well, I just want to ask another question that'll trigger another lecture. Then I can glean some more before we leave. But no, we just so appreciate you, Cole.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You're just a delightful person to visit with. And we both admire you and are so grateful.
Right back at you. I feel the same about you.
So, Cole, how would you encourage someone to arise with Christ?
I think that practice of connection, courage, and compassion, if those things are on our hearts and in our intentions, seeking connection, both horizontal. When I talk to people, even when I'm working with families or couples, people that are entrenched in conflict and hurt, sometimes I think they're shocked when I tell them, you can be connected and be disagreeing with each other. You can be connected and be angry. You could be connected and sad. The difference when it's working, when it's not, is when the two people are still prizing the connection. So even though they're like, I'm still really sad, I'm still really mad, but I'm going to make sure that we're doing something to signal that I'm still really interested and invested in this, and I'm really ticked off. When we protect our connection, we can talk about a lot of things. When I look at society, that's something that when they say, oh, it's division and all of that, I think that's because we're not protecting connection. And that's when people start saying things that are hurtful because they're not worried about a connection. They're like, I'm going to cut that right off. So for me, I'm like, if we're staying focused on connection, when Jesus was telling us to love our enemies and to walk 2 miles with them, give them your cloak, I think all of those were calls to connect, to stay connected. When we're reading, recently in our Come Follow Me with the City of Enoch, they had a lot of things. They had like a cognitive connection, they had an emotional connection, and then they took care of each other. And so it's these things about remaining in connection. And with God, it's okay to be mad at God. He can tolerate that. It's okay to be sad at God. You can maintain a connection with God and be mad and sad with him. But it's still like, I'm still going to try to stay connected with you, even though I'm really mad at you right now. So connection, both vertical and horizontal. And then courage, that notion of facing things with courage and grace. Change, improvement, healing, it requires courage in some way. Marshaling up something that feels beyond you. And Jesus exemplified courage in all that he did. He was showing us to live a life of courage. And then that last thing is compassion, I think inwardly and outwardly. And so we usually think of compassion that way. It's like, oh, be nice to people. It's that bi-directional. It's like inside too. I will do an intervention with people. I was just visiting with a client this week when we were talking about something he was being quite harsh on himself about. And all I asked him was like, talk to yourself as if you're talking to a really good friend. And all of a sudden it just changed how he was talking to himself. And he was able to say things like, you're doing the best you can. That was a tricky situation. And you handled it as good as anyone could handle it. But before that, the script was pretty like, get it together, man. I can't believe you're doing that. So for me, arising with Christ, partnering with him, seeing if I can catch up to him, if I can keep connection in my mind with other people and with him, with God, having courage to face those things and doing it both internally compassionate and outside. I think those help me get a little closer to him and a little bit more like him. I think that's what comes to my mind.
We're so glad you joined us today. Arise with Christ is all about connecting with others and growing in faith. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who could benefit from it. Your support really means the world to us. Follow us on Instagram at arise.with.christ for inspiration and community.